Hello and welcome to this ArtCAM Express demonstration. If you take a look at the screen, you can see I'm just using the basic version of ArtCAM Express. Take a look on the right hand side, I have no modules installed, so all of the demonstration that you're about to see is done in the basic ArtCAM Express. What I'm going to be doing today is to create a door, and I'm going to split this up into 4 sections, and each section is going to be designed differently using ArtCAM, and I'm going to show you various techniques that you can use using ArtCAM Express. So what I'm going to do first of all is to click there to create a new model, and I'm going to create a new model that's 1000mm by 2000mm and 25mm thick. Set my datum to the center of the sheet, and I'm just going to OK that. Now this has created a new workspace for me, currently set up within the 2D view. If I click here, that will show me the 3-dimensional view. Go back to the 2D view. Most of this demonstration is going to be done using the 2D view, and what I'm going to do first of all is to create a rectangle. So I'll just draw a rectangle anywhere on the screen, and what I can do is change the sizes of that there. So I'm going to set some door sizes here, so a width of 864 by 1981, and I'm going to create that. Now, as you can see, this is not in the centre of my job. So if I click here, this will just centre the rectangle in the centre of the sheet. So there you can see the outside dimensions of my door. What I'm going to do now is to create a vertical line. Here you can see just creating a line. It's snapped to the one point, and then I can bring that down. I can bring it down until I get that parallel snap point, or I could press Control, which will give me a 15-degree angle snap. So I could go to there, let's say for instance, and click that. Now this line wants to carry on. If I were to right click, it would come out of the tool, and then I would need to go back to the polyline tool, create another line. If I press space, it will allow me to just create a new line. So I'll do it with the snap this time. So there you can see I've created a new line. I'm going to center that so it places it in the center of the model, and I'll center the vertical one as well. So there you can see I have 2 crosshairs in the center of my sheet. So what I'm going to do with these is to offset them. So I'm going to offset the vector by 50mm both sides, so it creates a 100mm ridge, and I'm going to delete the original vectors. So there you can see that that's offset both ways by 50mm. I'll do the same for this vertical one. So there you can see it's created a cross in the center of the piece, and I'm going to select the original outside rectangle now, and I'm going to offset that by 50mm inwards this time, and I'm not going to delete the original vectors. So there you can see that that's offset that inwards. Now what I need to do is to trim all the pieces that I don't need off. So if I click here for trim vectors, and I'm just going to use the scissor tools to select all of the pieces that I don't want. So there you can see, just get rid of the center parts here. Do the same here, the center, and at the top here. So there you can see I've trimmed all of that up, and I can just delete the outside pieces now. So I'm just selecting those and pressing delete on the keyboard. Now if I take a look at these 4 sections, you can see they are 4 different parts at the moment. So what I'm going to do is to just select all of the pieces of the rectangles, and I'm going to press the left mouse button over this menu here, and underneath there we have join vectors. So if I click that, it will say the number of vectors now is 12, and the number of vectors after I join this is going to be 4, which is going to be correct. So these will have all joined up now. So there you can see I have 4 separate rectangles. And what I'm going to be doing is using these rectangles for each design that I'm going to use for this demonstration. So firstly, for the top left rectangle, what I'm going to do is just open up my internet search engine, and I'm going to type in flourish, and I'm going to go to images, and I think I'll take this image. Now what I'm going to do is to just take a really low resolution image and show you how quickly it is to convert that into vectors for you to use and machine without no editing, straight within ArtCAM Express. So if I just right click and copy it, I'm not going to actually go into the page, I'm just going to copy the thumbnail, and I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to right click, paste that into ArtCAM Express. So I'll just paste that down to there, and I'll just zoom in on it so you can see. So there you can see the flourish that I've just pasted into there. You can see it's really badly pixelated, lots and lots of different colours within there. So what I'm going to do is use this tool here, the bitmap to vector, move that over to the right so you can see this, and I'm going to reduce colours. Now what this will do, it will turn this into a manageable amount for the bitmap to vector tool to work with. Specifically, it needs to use one colour to actually trace around. So if I start bringing this down, you'll slowly see all of this flourish start to turn black as it blends into each other. So there you can see I've brought it right down to 2 colours. I can OK that, and what I'm going to do is just click create vectors. If I drop the visibility down, the transparency, just zoom in here, you can see that that's given me some really nice vectors. Let's say for instance just here you can see this little rogue pixel sticking out here. You can see it's just completely ignored that and created a smooth blended vector going round there. So these are ready to be machined. I don't need to edit these in any way. What I'm going to do is just turn that off. I'm going to just group these because I need to center this into the center of the top left rectangle. So the way that I do that is click here to group. So now when I select these, that's all one part. So now if I press shift and select the top left rectangle and hold the mouse button down over this menu here, you can see I have center vector. So what this is going to do is going to place the flourish in the center of the top left rectangle. Now you can see it's a little bit too large at the moment, so what I'm going to do is just click transform vectors, and if I just press shift and alt, and I can just move that bottom handler inwards to there. I'm going to select the flourish and the rectangle, and I'm going to place this at the bottom now, so align bottom. So there you can see that that's placed that at the bottom. Now if I wanted to move this, I could do that with the arrow keys. So let's just move that up a little bit, like so. So that's placed at the bottom of my rectangle. Now what I'm going to do is to create a few more rectangles. Let's say create them here, and I'm going to choose a width of 15mm. I'm not too worried about the length at the moment. You'll see why in a moment. And with that rectangle still selected, I want to do a couple of copies of this in the X direction. So the way that I can do that is to click the block copy tool. So if I click that, and I'm going to use a gap of 30mm in X. It doesn't matter about the Y gap because I've only got one row, because I don't want any coming upwards or down in the Y direction. I just want X copies, and I want 3 pieces to go in X. So if I click apply, there you can see it's copied the part another 2 times going across. And what I'm going to do with this is to group this again, just so they're all one part, and then shift select the rectangle, and I'm going to center that again. Now I'm going to ungroup this, so if I just hover over the group, you can see below that I have ungroup. And what I'm going to do is just zoom in on the flourish, and I'm going to offset this outwards by 50mm. So this is just going to break up all of the vectors and offset that outwards, because what I want to do is to trim off these rectangles to the offset. So if I click the trim tool, and I'm going to just trim these off here, and I'm going to trim the offset off, and I'll just delete the waste piece. Now if I select all of these rectangles again, I need to just join those up, because at the moment it's 2 separate parts. So if I click join, here you can see number of vectors now is 6, the number of vectors after is going to be 3. So there you can see that that's 1 vector, that's 1 vector, and that's 1 vector. So that's the top left panel done. What I'm going to do now is the top right one, and I'm going to show you how to import some vectors from various places. So if I click on the vector drop down and import, here you can see all of the supported types for ArtCAM Express. We have Adobe Illustrator, EPS files, AutoCAD files, DXF, DWG, Delcam files, and Meta files, WMF. So what I'm going to do first of all is to open a EPS file. So here you can see Corner Art EPS. So I'm going to open that. Here you can see that that's brought that in. Just zoom in on it so you can see. So it's just a bit of corner art. And what I'm going to do is just align this. So if I shift select the top right rectangle, and I'm going to align it at the top, and then align it at the right. So it's in the top right corner. Now what I'm going to do is to transform this. So if I click transform, and I'm just going to scale this up. This time I'm going to press shift just so it brings it the one way, and I'm going to bring it to around about halfway in between the rectangle on X. So that looks about right, and I'm going to move this in X. So I'll move it by -20, and I'm going to move it in Y by -20, just so it brings it off the top and the right edge. So if I click apply, then you can see that that's moved that. So there we have our corner art. What I'm going to show you now is how to do node editing. What I want to do is to make this section here, the vertical straight edge, I want to make that longer. I want it to come down to about halfway on the rectangle. So the way that I can do that is to select the part, ungroup it so I can edit it, so it's all separate pieces, as you can see. And what I'm going to do is to select this vertical piece and click here for node editing. Now what you can do with these is to, if I just zoom in, here we have nodes, and what I can do is, let's say for instance select those, and I can move those. So there you can see I can start manipulating the actual shape. And what I can do is, if I press Alt, it will give me a angle snap. So I can just move that down to there. I can do the same on this part, just select all of the nodes. Now this is just a very brief introduction into nodes, and I'm just going to move that down to there. So there you can see I've moved both of the vertical pieces down just so it's almost at the centre of the rectangle. So what I'm going to do now is to just select all of that and then regroup it, because I want to make a copy of this. So there you can see I've grouped that, and what I'm going to do now is to draw a vertical and horizontal line in the centre of this rectangle. Now the way that I can do that is if I hover over the rectangle, you can see I'll start to get this snap mode here. So I can click there and I know that that's in the centre of the rectangle. Just going to bring it past the rectangle, doesn't matter where, as I'm just going to be using these as guidelines. So there you can see my two lines. Select the corner piece and select the vertical line first of all, and I'm going to mirror this. So click on mirror vectors. I want to copy the original vectors and I want to do this above the line. So there you can see that that's copied that over to there, but I don't want that on that side, I want it to be down here. So if I select the horizontal line, this time I'm not going to copy and do it about the line. So there you can see that that's moved that to the bottom left of the rectangle. So I can delete my two lines now. So there we have my two corner pieces. What I'm going to do now is to just create a line. I'll snap to the corner there, snap to this corner as well, and I'm going to go back into node editing. Now if I right click on the line, it gives me options for the nodes. I can also insert a node wherever I wish by pressing I. So let's insert one there, and I'm going to insert one there. Now at the moment, if I move one of these, you can see it's just a jagged line. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to press S over the top of it and S over the top of this one. Now if I move this now, you can see it's creating a curvy line. So there you can see it's giving me a nice little curve. And what I'm going to do is just move the start and the end points inwards, so it creates this curve here. And I'm going to import another piece of vector artwork. So if I click import, but this time this is going to be a DXF drawing. So click this flower and open it, and I'm going to group that straight away. I'm going to transform it just to make it a little bit larger. Let's make it about that large, and I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to select this curvy line that I created. Now what I'm going to do is to paste this along a curve. Now this is really easy and it creates some really good effects. So just going to specify a number, let's say 6, and then click paste. So there you can see that that's pasted that along the curve. I can delete those now. So there you can see my top right piece is designed now. I'm going to come down to the bottom left piece. What I'm going to do is to first of all just press Ctrl and copy this flourish. Copy it to around about there, and what I'm going to do is to just create a new piece using this flourish. The way I'm going to do that is to go back to the block copy rotate. Previously we done a block copy. This time I'm going to do a rotate copy, and I'm going to select the origin. So I'm just dragging the crosshairs from this dialog page, and I'm going to move it somewhere above the flourish, let's say around about there, and I'm going to create 5 copies of this. Now if I click apply, what this will do, it will rotate around and create a round flourish. So there you can see my round flourish. Now if I zoom in on this, there's a little problem. Where it's rotated around, you can see that I have overlapping vectors. This, just to be completely honest, looks a complete mess here. Take a good while to trim all this, join it all back up. But within ArtCAM we have a tool called Weld Vectors. So if I click Weld Vectors, what this will do, it will automatically do all this for me. So if I click that, it will automatically trim all of these parts and join them all up. So there you can see it's trimmed all of that out for me. So now this is all ready to be machined. Don't need to do anything with that except for group it all and make sure that it's going to fit within the rectangle. So what I'm going to do is just center this in the bottom right rectangle, and I'm just going to transform it just so I make sure that it fits within there. So that looks fine like so. And what I'm going to do is create a line, or vertical line in the center, and I'm going to transform this. So at the moment it's 890.5 millimeters. I'm going to change that to around 600 millimeters and apply that. And I'm going to do a paste along a curve again. Obviously this is a straight curve. So if I select that, I'm going to do this 3 times and click paste. So there you can see that that's pasted that along the curve. Okay, so now what I'm going to do for the bottom right design is to use some clip art. Now ArtCAM comes with over 500 pieces of clip art in any version. So this is all available within ArtCAM Express, and even though ArtCAM Express you cannot create 3-dimensional reliefs, you can import them from the relief clip art library. So here you can see we have lots and lots of different reliefs. For instance, crests, animals, we have greenery. What I'm going to do is come up to the architectural stuff, and I'm going to use this wood flourish, a lot like the one that we have here, and I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to shift select the bottom right rectangle, and I'm going to center that. Now I can change the height of this or the width, I can change the size of this. I'm not going to do that for this particular one, and I'm just going to click paste. So if I go to the 3D view now, here you can see that that's pasted that relief into the 3D view. So there you can see quite a nice little flourish. Go back to the 2D view. What I want to do now is to maybe put a texture on the back of these. So it's got like a little texture on the back of there. So if we come down to the textures, and I think I'll use this crumpled texture here. So if I select that, and I'm going to move that up to here, and what I'm going to do is just resize this texture and snap it onto the rectangle. So there you can see that that's snapped onto the rectangle. If I go to the 3D view, it will give me a blue preview. So there you can see it's cutting through the actual flourish there. So I need to drop the height of this down. So let's say 1.5 millimeters and apply that. So there you can see it's now at the back of the flourish. So I'm going to paste that down now, and I can close that. So there you can see the flourish with the texture on the back of there. So I can now close the clip art library, and this piece is ready to be machined. So if I click here, this shows all of the toolpaths available within ArtCAM Express, and what I'm going to do is to select the top 2 rectangles and create an area clearance toolpath. Just move this over to the right so you can see a little better, and here you can see ask me what I want to use. The selected vectors have both my rectangles selected. Start depth, finish depth, length of 5 millimeters, and I'm going to add a tool for this. Let's use the largest tool that I've got, a 12 millimeter end mill, and I'm going to click calculate now. So if I just zoom in on this, you can see that that's created the toolpaths, which are in red. If I wish to turn these off, here you can see the area clearance. I can just click on the light bulb here. That turns off in the 2D view. If I go to the 3D view and click this light bulb, that turns off the visibility of the toolpaths within the 3D view. So I'll zoom back out so you can see, and what I'm going to do is to just select all of the inside of the top left rectangle. I'm going to create a new area clearance, and the start depth is going to be 5mm this time because I've already blasted all of the material away. Finish depth is going to be 10mm, so this is going to cut 5mm down, and I'm going to use a 3mm end mill. Now you can add your own tools to this database. I'm going to click calculate now. So that's machined all of the inside there. Turn off the visibility, and what I'm going to do now is to do some V-bit carving on all of this artwork in here. So click create V-bit carving. The start depth, now I'm not going to change this. I know that this needs to be 5mm, so I'm going to show you how I can edit that afterwards. So I'm going to do the start depth of 0, and I'm going to use a small V-bit, 6mm. If I wish to know the maximum depth that it's going to cut, I can click there and it will tell me the maximum depth, which is 6.6mm. Use a roughing tool if I wished, if I were doing really large carving, and I can click calculate now. So that's created the toolpath for that, but I know that I've done that wrong. So what I can do is to just right click on the V-bit carving, edit it, and this allows me to edit the toolpath. Change the start depth to 5mm and click calculate now, and it will redo the toolpath. So there you can see it's redone the toolpath in a matter of seconds. So I can turn that off. What I'm going to do for this one is to create an area clearance again. This is going to leave these pieces standing up. So I'm going to do finish depth of 5mm. Going to add a tool, largest one that I have. Now I'm going to show you the benefits of using a module, which is the advanced 2D machining. Here you can see, now that I've added that tool, if I zoom in, there's lots of places that I know that 12mm tool will not get into, and you can see the add button is greyed out, so it's not allowing me to add another tool. If I had the advanced 2D machining module, what I would be able to do would be to add multiple tools to that. So I could go and add a 6mm, a 3mm, and then finally a 1mm. And each of those tools would just go and clear out the parts that the other tool missed. Without the advanced 2D machining, I can't do that. So the only way to get around that will be to calculate this toolpath and then create another toolpath. But the only problem with that is that it's going to be machining the whole of the piece again. So that's the only way to get around it if you don't want to purchase the advanced 2D machining, or you can just go straight in with a smaller cutter. So I'm going to calculate that now. And there you can see it's created the toolpath. As you can see, it's not getting into certain areas. So that's the great thing about the advanced 2D machining. Also allows you to add multiple tabs or bridges, and also allows you to have a lead out. So I'm going to turn that off for a moment, and I'm going to create a new area clearance toolpath. Now you'll see what I mean. You can see I've already roughed out all of this around here. I don't really need to do it again, but if I want to get into all these areas, I'm going to need to do it. So I've added a 3mm end mill. and click calculate. So there you can see it's got into certain areas, probably still need to go even smaller, but that would not be economic really by cutting the whole piece using an even smaller cutter. So if you're going to be doing a lot of this type of work using area clearances, might be worthwhile investing in the advanced 2D machining module. So I'm going to close the area clearance now, and I'll turn that off. Then what I'm going to do is to create a machine relief. So this is a 3D toolpath. This is just asking me to set up my block, my material, because it's a 3-dimensional toolpath. Just select OK. I'll do this within the 3D view. So there you can see all of my toolpaths within the 3D view. I'm not going to do the whole relief. I want to do selected vectors. So it's just within this rectangle here. And the finishing options, use a 6mm ball nose cutter. I'm going to change the angle of this because I don't want this to go in X and Z. I want it to go in Y and Z. If it was X and Z, there would be a lot of air moves where it was lifting up and then stepping over. So there's probably going to be a quarter to the opposite direction. So I'm going to change that to 90 degrees. And the roughing, use a 12mm end mill, and we're just going to click calculate now. So there you can see that that's creating the roughing toolpath. And now it's creating the finishing toolpath. So that's finished machining that. I can turn off all of my toolpaths, and all that I need to do now is to cut the part out. So this is quite a basic toolpath, which is the create profile toolpath. I can go outside, along or inside the vector. I'm going to go outside, finish depth of 25mm, select my profiling tool, 12mm end mill. I can add a lead in if I wished. If I had the advanced 2D machining, I could add a lead out as well. I can add a bridge to the start point. So ArtCAM Express, the basic version, lets you add one bridge to the start point. If you want multiple bridges, then it's the advanced 2D machining. And I can also add ramping moves if I wished. So I'm going to click calculate now, and then if I right click, I can simulate all of the toolpaths, or I can click here to simulate all of the toolpaths. So this is just giving me a simulation of what's going to be cut on the machine. So if I just zoom in a little bit, you can see what's actually being cut. See the V-bit carving up here. And this is creating the machine relief, the 3-dimensional toolpath. And then finally cutting the part out. So if I take a plan view of this, what I can also do is select the simulation, and I can change the material. So let's say I wanted to use medium oak vertical, and that allows me to colour in the simulation. Now if I wish to send this to the machine, just quickly go through this. I can click toolpaths and save toolpaths. Wherever toolpaths I want to send to the machine, just move those onto the right hand side. Let's say I wanted to use those four, and to choose my post, ArtCAM comes with over 200 posts. These are included in all the versions of ArtCAM, even ArtCAM Express. We also have a standard generic G code post that you may be able to get your machine to run with. So you just choose your post processor and then save the toolpath, and that gives you your G code to be sent to your machine. So I hope that you found this demonstration useful, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.